Life before the storm felt like a comfortable routine, a blend of work, love, and family. I was married to Sarah for 5 years, and in those years I had built a life that I thought was sturdy and reliable. We lived in a modest home, filled with memories of laughter, shared meals, and quiet evenings spent in each other's company. Sarah was my partner, my confidant, and I believed my forever. But all of that was about to change. The turning point came when my mother fell ill. It was a sudden diagnosis, a rare illness that required immediate attention and long-term care. I remember the day the doctor delivered the news, the way his eyes softened with sympathy as he spoke. It felt as if the ground had been pulled out from under me. My mother, who had always been my rock, was now vulnerable and in need of constant support. As the only child, the responsibility fell squarely on my shoulders. I knew I had to step up to be there for her, and I was determined to do whatever it took. I spent countless hours at the hospital, sitting by her bedside, holding her hand and listening to her stories. I cherished those moments, even amidst the fear and uncertainty. They reminded me of the strength of family bonds. Sarah was supportive at first. She would bring me coffee, check in on me, and even help me navigate the healthcare system. I believed we were united in this struggle, that our love would only grow stronger as we faced life's challenges together. But as the weeks turned into months, the strain of my mother's illness began to take its toll on me. I was exhausted physically, emotionally, and mentally. I often found myself lost in thought, my mind racing from one worry to the next. I was juggling work commitments and caregiving, and I felt like I was drowning. In those moments, I leaned heavily on Sarah for support, seeking comfort in her presence. She had always been my anchor. However, there was a subtle shift in our dynamic. The late nights at the hospital meant I was often too tired to engage with her fully when I returned home. I would collapse onto the couch, barely able to muster the energy to converse, let alone maintain the intimacy we once shared. I thought she understood. I thought she was patient, but I was blind to the cracks forming beneath the surface. As the days passed, I began to notice little things. Sarah was more distant, her laughter less frequent, and her phone seemed to be a constant companion. I brushed off my suspicions. After all, she was my wife. I trusted her completely. I convinced myself that she was just stressed too, and that our lives were in a state of upheaval. It was a phase, I told myself. We would get through this together. But deep down, a nagging feeling began to creep in, a whisper of doubt that I could not silence. I wanted to believe in the strength of our love, but I was increasingly aware of the emotional chasm that was forming between us. I felt like I was carrying the weight of the world, and I feared that Sarah was slipping away from me. I just didn't know how to confront that fear. It was during one of those long and exhausting nights at the hospital that everything changed. I had just returned home after a particularly draining day. As I walked through the door, the familiar scent of our home hit me. But it felt different somehow, hollow. I turned on the lights and the silence was deafening. Sarah was supposed to be there, waiting for me. Instead, I found the living room empty, save for the flickering light of the television. Little did I know that my world was about to shatter, and the betrayal that awaited me would change everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty. I had been so focused on my mother's illness that I had failed to see the storm brewing in my own home. The moment I discovered Sarah's infidelity is etched in my memory with a clarity that feels almost surreal. I had returned home, weary from the day's emotional toll, and was about to collapse into bed when a notification on my phone caught my eye. It was a message from an unknown number. At first, I thought nothing of it. Perhaps it was a spam message or some promotional junk, but something compelled me to open it. The message was simple, but its implications were devastating. It was a photo, Sarah, laughing and leaning against a man I didn't recognize, her body angled toward him, an intimacy that sent a jolt of ice through my veins. The caption read, "Can't wait to see you again, love." My heart raced and my breath quickened as I stared at the screen, disbelief washing over me like a cold wave. I felt as if I were drowning in a sea of confusion and anger. Who is he? I whispered to myself, my voice barely audible over the pounding of my heart. I tried to rationalize it, to convince myself that there had to be an explanation. Maybe it was a harmless friendship, a misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew the truth. The feeling of betrayal slithered through me, wrapping its cold fingers around my heart. I stumbled to the living room, the photo still clutched in my hand. The walls felt as if they were closing in on me. I needed answers. I needed to confront her. My mind raced as I replayed the moments leading up to this revelation. Her late nights, her secretive phone calls, the way she had withdrawn from me. It all made a horrifying sense now. I had been so consumed by my mother's illness that I had neglected to see the cracks forming in my marriage. When Sarah finally walked through the door, her face lit up with a smile that felt like a dagger to my heart. "Hey babe, how was your day?" she asked, her tone light and carefree, completely oblivious to the storm brewing in my heart. I felt a surge of anger rise within me, a mixture of pain and betrayal that pushed me to the edge. "Who is he?" I demanded, my voice trembling with emotion. I held up the phone, the photo glaring back at us like an accusation. Her smile faltered and her eyes widened in shock. For a moment she looked like a deer caught in headlights, and I reveled in that brief moment of vulnerability. What are you talking about?" she stammered, but I could see the panic in her eyes. The facade was cracking, and I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. "The man in the picture, Sarah, who is he?" My voice grew louder, filled with an intensity I hadn't intended. I was both furious and heartbroken, my emotions a volatile mix that threatened to explode. "I can explain," she said, her voice barely a whisper. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, trying to fabricate a story that would make sense of her betrayal. But deep down, I knew there was no explanation that could justify her actions. "Explain? What could possibly justify this?" I gestured toward the phone, my heart racing as I awaited her response. "I've been here caring for my sick mother while you've been out with another man. How could you do this to me?" Tears welled in her eyes, and for a moment I saw a flicker of regret. But as she opened her mouth to speak, I could tell she was struggling to find the right words to craft a narrative that would absolve her of guilt. "It was a mistake. I was lonely. You were never around. I didn't think you'd understand," she finally admitted, her voice breaking. "Lonely?" I echoed, incredulity washing over me. "You think I'm not lonely. You think I wanted to be away from you. I've been here fighting for my mother's life, and you chose to betray me. You chose him over me." The pain in my chest felt like a physical blow, and I struggled to contain the rage bubbling inside. "I did mean for it to happen," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "I thought you were too consumed with everything else. I didn't think you'd care." "Clearly, you didn't think at all," I shot back, my anger spilling over. I felt like a volcano erupting, spewing forth all the hurt and betrayal that had been building inside me. "I've sacrificed everything for you, for us, and this is how you repay me." She began to cry, and for a moment I felt a flicker of sympathy. But it was quickly overshadowed by the overwhelming sense of betrayal. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, teetering dangerously close to the abyss. My trust had been shattered, and I knew that the woman I once loved was slipping away from me, replaced by a stranger who had chosen to hurt me in my moment of need. The confrontation felt like a turning point, a moment when everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty was thrown into chaos. I was left standing there, heartbroken and furious, grappling with the magnitude of her betrayal. The love I once held for Sarah began to twist into something darker, something that would lead me down a path I never imagined I would take. The tension in the air was palpable as I stood before Sarah, my heart pounding in my chest like a war drum. I was filled with an overwhelming mix of rage and heartbreak, my mind racing with thoughts I couldn't quite articulate. I had always believed that love meant standing by each other through thick and thin, but here I was, confronted with the cold reality that my wife had chosen to betray me when I was at my most vulnerable. "Do you even understand what you've done?" I asked, my voice strained as I tried to keep my emotions in check. I needed her to comprehend the depth of her betrayal, to grasp the pain she had inflicted upon me. "You had every opportunity to talk to me, to communicate how you were feeling. Instead, you decided to sleep with someone else." Her eyes darted away, avoiding my gaze. I know," she said, her voice quivering. "I messed up. I was confused and scared. I thought you wouldn't care about me anymore." She took a step forward, reaching for me, but I instinctively recoiled. I didn't want to feel her touch, not now, not after what she had done. Confused, scared, I echoed, incredulity pouring from my lips. You think that justifies your actions? While I was caring for my sick mother, you were out seeking comfort in the arms of another man. How could you even think that was okay? Each word felt like a stab, and I relished the pain in her eyes. She needed to feel the weight of her choices. I didn't mean for it to happen, cried, her voice rising in desperation. It was just a one-time thing. I thought it could help me feel better, help me escape. Escape? I interrupted, anger boiling over. Escape from what? From your husband who was sacrificing everything for you. Did you think I was enjoying the nights spent at the hospital watching my mother suffer? Did you think I wanted to be away from you? My voice cracked, the raw emotion spilling out of me like a broken dam. I thought you didn't want me anymore, she shouted back, tears streaming down her face. You were so focused on your mother, and I felt so alone. I was trying to cope, and I made a terrible mistake. I thought I could find solace in someone else, but it only made things worse. Solace? I spat, feeling a mix of anger and pity for the woman I had once loved. You thought cheating would bring you solace. You're standing here, telling me you felt alone, and yet you chose to betray the one person who has always been there for you. What does that say about you? Her shoulders sagged, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. She was caught between her guilt and her desire to defend her choices. I had never seen her like this before, vulnerable and broken. It was a side of her I had never wanted to witness, yet here we were, stripped of the facade we had built around our marriage. I didn't want to hurt you, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I thought I could fix things on my own. I didn't think you'd understand the depths of my loneliness. I thought. I thought you would be angry, and I didn't want to add to your burden. Angry. I laughed bitterly, the sound echoing through the room. You think I'm just angry? I'm heartbroken, Sarah. I'm devastated. I sacrificed everything for you, and you chose to betray me at my lowest point. Do you have any idea how that feels? The pain was raw and real, a wound that felt as if it would never heal. I'm so sorry, she said again, her voice breaking. I never wanted to hurt you. I thought I could make it better. I thought I could find a way to cope. Please just give me a chance to fix this. I'll do anything. Anything. I scoffed, the bitterness in my voice unmistakable. What could you possibly do that would make any of this better? Trust is broken, Sarah. Once it's shattered, it's nearly impossible to put back together. You've destroyed the foundation of our marriage, and I don't know if I can ever forgive you. Her expression shifted from desperation to fear as she realized the gravity of my words. I was done playing the role of the understanding husband. I felt a sense of clarity wash over me, a realization that I was no longer the man willing to overlook her infidelities. I had been the one sacrificing, and now it was time to think about myself. What do you want from me? She asked, her voice trembling. Do you want me to leave? Is that what you want? I paused, the weight of her question hanging in the air between us. I had never thought I would reach this point, contemplating the end of our marriage. But in that moment, I felt a sense of empowerment. I could choose to walk away from the pain to reclaim my life. I don't know what I want, but I do know that I can't continue like this. I need time to think. The silence that followed was deafening, filled with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. I could see the fear in her eyes, but I was too consumed by my own confusion and hurt to offer her comfort. I turned away, leaving her standing there, a broken woman in the wake of her choices, while I grappled with the reality of what had just happened. My heart was heavy, but for the first time, I felt a flicker of resolve. As I walked away, I knew that this confrontation had changed everything. I was no longer just a husband caring for his sick mother. I was a man who had been betrayed, and I was determined to find a way to navigate the aftermath of this betrayal. In the days following the confrontation, a heavy silence hung over our home, a stark contrast to the laughter and warmth that had once filled the space. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, each corner a reminder of the life we had built together, now tainted by betrayal. I felt like a stranger in my own home, and the weight of Sarah's infidelity pressed down on my chest like a leaden blanket. I had spent countless hours considering my next steps, grappling with the turmoil of emotions that churned within me. I was angry, heartbroken, and yet a part of me felt empowered. I had been the one to shoulder the burden of caregiving, to put my life on hold, and now it felt like the universe had flipped the script on me. Sarah had shown me her true colors, and I was determined to ensure that she faced the consequences of her actions. As I reflected on my feelings, I couldn't shake the sense of betrayal that lingered in the air. I had sacrificed so much for her, for us, and now she had thrown it all away for a fleeting moment of pleasure. The thought of her with another man made my stomach churn, a visceral reminder of the trust that had been shattered. I wanted her to feel the weight of her choices, to understand the pain she had inflicted upon me. And so I began to devise a plan, one that would ensure she experienced the very loneliness and abandonment she had thrust upon me. I started by withdrawing my support. At first, it was subtle, no longer offering to help with household chores, declining to run errands, and refusing to engage in conversations about our future. I kept my distance, both physically and emotionally, and with each passing day, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. I had been the caretaker for so long, but now I was reclaiming my power. Sarah noticed the change. Her attempts to reach out were met with cold indifference. Whenever she tried to initiate a conversation, I would respond with short, clipped answers, my heart hardening with each exchange. "How was your day?" she would ask, and I'd reply, "Fine," before turning my attention back to my phone or the television. I could see the confusion and hurt in her eyes, but I felt no remorse. She had made her choice, and now she would have to live with the consequences. As the days turned into weeks, the atmosphere in our home grew increasingly tense. I could feel the weight of her desperation as she tried to bridge the chasm that had formed between us. She began to reach out to friends and family, seeking comfort from those around her, but I remained steadfast in my resolve. I wanted her to feel isolated, to experience the loneliness she had inflicted upon me. There were moments when guilt threatened to creep in, when I would catch a glimpse of the woman I had once loved. I would remember the laughter we had shared, the dreams we had built together, and a small part of me would ache for the connection we had lost. But then I would remind myself of her betrayal, the way she had chosen to turn away from me when I needed her most. The anger would well up again, fueling my determination to see her face the repercussions of her actions. One evening, as I sat on the couch, I noticed Sarah pacing the room, her frustration palpable. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice tinged with desperation. I looked up from my phone, feigning disinterest. "About what?" I replied, my tone flat. "About us," she said, her eyes pleading. "I know I messed up, but I want to fix this. I want us to be okay again." "Do you?" I asked, my voice laced with skepticism. "Because it seems to me that you've already made your choice. You didn't think about us when you were with him, did you?" Her face fell, and for a moment I felt a flicker of something, regret perhaps, but I quickly pushed it aside. "I need time, Sarah. I need to figure out what I want," I continued, my heart hardening again. The truth was, I was enjoying the power I felt in this situation. I had been the one left behind, the one who had been faithful, while she sought comfort elsewhere. Now I was in control, and it felt good. I wanted her to know what it was like to be alone, to feel the sting of regret for her choices. As the weeks passed and her attempts to reconnect continued to fail, I noticed a change in her demeanor. The vibrant woman I had married was fading, replaced by a shadow of her former self. She looked tired, defeated, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction at the sight. She was experiencing the loneliness and abandonment she had inflicted upon me, and I felt a twisted sense of justice. One night, as I lay in bed, I heard her sobbing softly in the dark. My heart ached at the sound, but I quickly silenced it. I had to remind myself of her betrayal, the way she had chosen someone else over me. I had to stay strong to see this through. I wanted her to understand the consequences of her actions, to realize that love isn't just about the good times, but also about standing by each other when it matters most. In those moments of silence, as I heard her cries echo through the house, I felt a strange mix of emotions: anger, satisfaction, and even a twinge of guilt. But I pushed it all aside, focusing instead on my resolve. I was determined to let karma take its course, to ensure that she faced the consequences of her choices, no matter how painful it might be for both of us. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was ready to embrace the aftermath of her betrayal. I was ready to reclaim my life, to find my own path, even if it meant watching her suffer in the process. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself reflecting more and more on the choices that had led us to this point. I had become a man fueled by anger and a desire for revenge, but deep down, I was also grappling with a sense of loss. The love I had for Sarah had been replaced by a bitterness that clouded my judgment. I was torn between wanting her to feel the weight of her actions and longing for the connection we once shared. The silence in our home was deafening, and the weight of our unspoken words hung heavily in the air. I went through the motions of daily life, but I felt like I was merely existing, not truly living. My mother's illness still loomed over me, a constant reminder of the fragility of life, yet here I was, caught in a storm of emotional turmoil that seemed to have no end. I often found myself sitting in the quiet of our living room, staring at the walls that had witnessed our laughter and love. The memories felt like ghosts, haunting me with what once was. I remembered the way Sarah would smile at me, the warmth of her touch, and the dreams we had shared about our future. Those moments felt like a distant memory now, overshadowed by the betrayal that had shattered our lives. But as I reflected, I couldn't help but feel a sense of empowerment in my decision to withdraw my support. I had been the one left behind, the one who had sacrificed so much for her, and now I was reclaiming my power. I wanted her to understand the gravity of her choices, to feel the loneliness that had consumed me during her betrayal. Yet, with every passing day, I found myself wrestling with guilt. Was I being too harsh? Was I punishing her for the rest of her life for a mistake? I had to remind myself that she had made her choice, that she had willingly turned away from me when I needed her the most. But the guilt lingered, gnawing at me, making me question whether I was becoming the very thing I despised. I began to analyze my feelings of anger and betrayal. Was it fair to want her to suffer? Did I want revenge or justice? I struggled to differentiate between the two, and the lines became increasingly blurred. I wanted her to experience the consequences of her actions, to feel the pain of isolation that I had endured, but I also knew that revenge would not heal the wounds that had been inflicted. One evening, as I sat in silence, I picked up my phone and scrolled through old photos of us. I stumbled upon a picture from our anniversary, where we were smiling, surrounded by candlelight and laughter. It was a stark reminder of what we had lost, of the love that had once flourished between us. I felt a lump form in my throat as I looked at her smiling face, a face that now felt like a stranger. In that moment, I realized I couldn't continue down this path of vengeance. It was consuming me, turning me into someone I didn't want to be. I needed to find a way to move forward, to reclaim my life without being shackled by the bitterness of betrayal. I had to confront my feelings, to acknowledge the hurt, but also to find a way to heal. As I wrestled with these thoughts, I began to think about what I truly wanted. Did I want to salvage our marriage? Could I ever forgive her? Or was it time to accept that our relationship had irrevocably changed? I had to face the reality that I might need to let go and move on, not just for her sake, but for my own. The thought of ending our marriage was daunting, but I knew I had to prioritize my well-being. I had spent so long caring for others, sacrificing my own needs, and now it was time to put myself first. I needed to reclaim my identity, to find out who I was outside of being a husband and a caregiver. I began to explore the idea of seeking therapy, a way to process my emotions and navigate the complexities of my situation. I realized that I couldn't do this alone. I needed guidance to help me make sense of the pain and betrayal, to help me find a way to heal and move forward. As I contemplated my next steps, I felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps there was a path forward that didn't involve revenge or bitterness. Perhaps I could find a way to heal, to forgive not just Sarah, but also myself for allowing the situation to unfold as it had. I didn't have all the answers, but I was determined to seek them out. In that moment of clarity, I understood that healing would take time. It wouldn't happen overnight, and there would be moments of doubt and struggle. But I was ready to confront my feelings, to face the pain, and to find a way to reclaim my life. I didn't want to be defined by betrayal. I wanted to emerge from this experience stronger and more resilient. Now, as I prepared to take the next steps in my journey, I felt a sense of empowerment wash over me. I was no longer a victim of betrayal. I was a survivor, ready to reclaim my narrative and forge a new path forward. The days that followed my decision to seek therapy were a mix of anxiety and hope. I knew that confronting my feelings and the reality of my situation would not be easy. But for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of direction. The idea of reclaiming my life, my identity, was empowering. I began to understand that healing was not just about forgiving Sarah. It was about forgiving myself for the pain I had endured and the choices I had made. I started attending therapy sessions, and it was a revelation. The therapist guided me through my emotions, helping me articulate the anger, sadness, and betrayal that had consumed me. I learned that it was okay to feel hurt, that my feelings were valid and deserved to be expressed. I began to unpack the layers of my relationship with Sarah, our love, our struggles, and ultimately her betrayal. With each session, I felt the weight of my pain begin to lift. I was learning to process my feelings instead of letting them fester and turn into bitterness. I realized that I had been holding onto my anger as a shield, but it was time to let it go. I had to acknowledge my hurt without allowing it to define me. As I continued to work through my emotions, I faced the hard truth that our marriage might not survive this. I had spent so much time contemplating revenge and isolation, but now I understood that it was essential to consider what was best for both of us. I needed to decide if I could ever trust Sarah again, and if I wanted to rebuild our relationship or if it was time to let go. One evening, after several weeks of therapy, I sat down with Sarah. She had been waiting for me, her expression a mix of hope and apprehension. The air between us was thick with unspoken words, but I was ready to finally address the elephant in the room. "Sarah," I began, my voice steady but soft. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. I've been going to therapy and it's helped me understand my feelings better. I want to talk about us." She nodded, her eyes wide with anticipation. "I want that too," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I know I've hurt you and I can't express how sorry I am. I've been trying to figure out how to make things right." "I appreciate that," I replied, taking a deep breath. "But I need you to understand that trust is something that takes time to rebuild. I can't just forget what happened. I can't pretend that everything is okay." "I know," she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. "I don't expect you to. I just want the chance to show you that I can be better. I want to work on this together." I paused, allowing her words to sink in. I could see the sincerity in her eyes, but I also knew that words alone wouldn't heal the wounds. "I'm not sure if I can forgive you yet," I admitted, "but I'm willing to try. I want to see if we can rebuild what we lost, but it's going to take time." Sarah nodded, her expression shifting from desperation to understanding. "I'll do whatever it takes," she promised. "I want to earn back your trust. I want to be the partner you deserve." As we spoke, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. It wouldn't be easy, and there would be days when doubt and insecurity would creep in. But for the first time, I felt a sense of possibility. We were both willing to put in the work, to face the challenges head-on, and to take the necessary steps toward healing. In the weeks that followed, we began to rebuild our relationship, one small step at a time. We started having honest conversations about our feelings, our fears, and our hopes for the future. I learned to express my emotions without letting anger overshadow them, and Sarah began to understand the importance of vulnerability and communication. We attended couples therapy together, creating a safe space to explore our relationship and the dynamics that had led to our current situation. It was a long road, filled with setbacks and breakthroughs, but we were committed to each other. I realized that while the pain of betrayal would always be a part of our story, it didn't have to define our future. As we navigated this new chapter, I began to see Sarah, not just as the woman who had betrayed me, but as a complex individual who had her own struggles and insecurities. We were both imperfect, and the journey of healing required compassion and understanding from both sides. Ultimately, I learned that forgiveness is a process, not a destination. It's a choice made daily, a commitment to let go of the past while striving for a better future. I began to embrace the idea that love is not just about the highs, but also about weathering the storms together. Now, as I look ahead, I feel a renewed sense of purpose. I have emerged from the shadows of betrayal, ready to embrace the lessons learned from this experience. I know that I am stronger than I was before, capable of navigating the complexities of love and trust. The future remains uncertain, but I am no longer defined by my pain. I am reclaiming my narrative, ready to write the next chapter of my life, one filled with hope, healing, and the possibility of a love that can withstand even the harshest storms. And as I take this journey, I carry with me the knowledge that true strength lies not in revenge, but in the courage to forgive and the willingness to embrace the complexities of love.